This is what the wrong mentality looks like in Formula 1. At least, that's what people say. Let's talk about Lando Norris and why his mindset doesn't fit the mold. All of these opinions are my own, so feel free to agree or disagree, and let me know your thoughts in the comments. In Formula 1, there is a very specific kind of mindset that gets praised, and I think you know the type. It's the ruthless, cold, unshakable mindset. It's the gold standard. It's what we want our drivers to adhere to. Drivers like Ayrton Senna, who was chasing perfection with a fire that bordered on spiritual. Think of Michael Schumacher, who was clinically dominant of how to make call. Kimi Raikkonen, who was cool as ice and winning races just like it was another Tuesday.
There is Kimi Raikkonen. He's not even gone back to the paddock. He's got his shirt off. He's on his boat.
And of course Max Verstappen, who's built his entire brand on being emotionally bulletproof, aggressive on track and unbothered by it all. These are some of the drivers that we associate with strong mentality, and it's understandable why. There's something really impressive about that level of focus, the ability to block out everything and perform, and it works. It wins titles and it wins races. Here's the thing, somewhere along the way, that became the only acceptable version of mentality within the sport. And if you're not stoic and you're not brushing things off like, yeah, whatever, and you say, wait, this is actually hard, then suddenly you become too emotional. You're too soft, you're not tough enough, and you don't have the right mentality. And that's what makes Lando Norris so refreshing, is because he doesn't fit that typical F1 mold. He's honest, he overthinks, and he admits when things get hard. In a sport that's still obsessed with perfection and control, that kind of vulnerability is rare. You can see in the interviews he's
My nap that I just had, I think. I literally woke up 1 second ago.
done, and the campaigns, like for instance
that
with
meant to be
the
a brain?
mental health charity, Mind. And you can see it with how McLaren openly supported him with mental health before that became a wider part of the conversation. And this clip that I'm about to show you is from a conversation that Lando had with his trainer John on World Mental Health Day, and he talks about his struggles with mental health and the pressure of racing and social media. Let's take a look.
You say some of the mental health challenges that you face across the season.
I probably have some away from track and have ones that are at track.
Yeah.
So some will be based upon, like the obvious ones, performance. I hate losing.
Yeah.
A lot.
I've noticed.
And it's not just like, I'm a bit sad, or just, it's like it can affect me through weeks if I have a bad run of results, or I'm struggling in qualifying or races. And then also just when I'm at home, a lot goes through my head all the time. I overthink things. So biggest things like just social media. I mean, you're in front of TV, in front of cameras, you're doing interviews all the time. You say one thing wrong, or like in a way that you think is all right, but then someone else interprets it differently or just thinks of it in a different way. Like, I would never want to...
You don't have
I would never, ever say something which I feel like is against someone in any way.
Yeah.
I'm just either saying a fact, which people hate, or I'm just giving my opinion, which, not everyone wants to agree with nowadays, or which don't have to agree with. But the fact that then people think I have like an intent behind it, or a bad intent behind it, like I feel like for anyone who knows me, I would never mean something like that.
Yeah.
So when I see it, and then, I see comments, like I still read it all. I'm just much better at dealing with it now than what I was maybe a few years ago. Like a few years ago, 2019, 2020, there was so much going on. My first year in Formula 1, I was always on social media.
You're telling me you don't go on social media now?
No, I use it, just a lot less than what I did. But the same picture of what they see.
Yeah.
So when you think of the picture they try and paint, then you think of that, like, is that really how I come across? Is that really what I say? But just because I'm not as good as that, comparing to other people that saying things or meaning things, then it doesn't mean like I've come in it that way, but that's just how people see it. I guess an important one, which, I've never been great at, is sleep.
I can definitely support that.
Like just going, just having correct bedtimes, getting enough sleep in, and not just one night before I come to the track or whatever, but days leading up to it. Sleep is probably the easiest one, the one that people talk about the most.
And means the most to you.
And I guess now I'm at a point where I also realize when I haven't slept enough, what I feel versus when I have slept enough. And maybe a few years ago I couldn't. Also just nutrition.
I'll give myself a pat on the back for that one.
Thank you, John. Nutrition. I mean, you probably remember when you joined me back in, 2015?
14, 15? Yeah.
I never used to eat.
Nothing.
I mean, I still don't eat a lot of it. My nutrition was...
bananas.
Yeah, very limited. And I was tiny, but obviously now I'm grown up, and nutrition, especially like when I'm home alone, yeah, making sure I'm on top of all of that, getting good meals in, all of those simple things again.
He's really open in that clip, and I think the one thing that stands out is how he speaks up about struggling to sleep and eat. Honestly, hearing that makes me feel like I'm not the only one. I think so many of us go through that, and to hear that from a world-famous F1 driver is actually really refreshing. But the honesty isn't new. I mean, we've seen it with him during his rookie years, we've seen it during karting. He's always had that emotional, expressive side.
Lando Norris. Lando, how's it going for you so far this weekend?
It's been good. I've had in my heats. I've had a first and second, which puts me on pole for the final, and qualified fourth overall, which is good.
Earlier results on your screen now. Ahmed's made up 8 places, by the way. Started 15th, he's already up.
Are you still happy with third?
As a reasonable result, it was quite a hard race. Started first, but really I couldn't do any better. I didn't want to crash and lose all my points, so it was a good race.
And I think he's definitely had trials along the way, but I think his first real test came in Sochi 2021. What stood out here was the fact that he took responsibility for his actions. He said, I made a call and I got it wrong. And I think we do see Lando own up to his mistakes. He learns from them and he speaks about how they make him feel. In this sport, image is everything, so to see that kind of self-awareness is quite rare. Mentality has become such a talking point in 2025, and that's because we've got 2 drivers in the McLaren garage who, yes, both have the same car, but completely different mentalities. It's a song of ice and fire, essentially. We have Oscar, who's cool, calm, clinical. And then we have Lando Norris, who's emotional, expressive. He wears his heart on his sleeve. And people love to compare the two. They love Oscar's cool head. They say he's got the championship mindset. He doesn't get rattled. He just gets on with it. And to be fair, it's not just talk. Oscar's had a linear title-winning trajectory. He's had back-to-back F3 and F2 championship wins. He's had a really strong rookie season in F1, and now he's fighting for world champion. And now, contrast that with Lando. He debuted in 2019, he earned his stripes in midfield machinery, and he took the long way up. He didn't have that rookie glory or the instant wins, he just had years of near misses and slow burns. The title fight with your teammate is a whole other ball game. It's more intense than just fighting your rivals from other teams. And we've seen that before with Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg at Mercedes. They had the same car, equal footing, and looked like fair racing turned into full-blown psychological war. McLaren find themselves in a similar position with their free-to-race concept, which sounds fantastic on paper, and yes, it has produced some brilliant wheel-to-wheel action this season, but it's a ticking time bomb. There's no number one driver, there's no clear hierarchy, no protected mental space. You just have these 2 incredibly talented drivers fighting for supremacy week in, week out, under the same roof. So whoever goes on to win this season, whether it's Lando or Oscar, they will have done so without the support structures others have had. Without that guaranteed number 1 spot, without the shielding, and whilst having to survive the fire. Here's the thing, mentality doesn't exist in a vacuum. You could be the most focused, most driven, disciplined driver on the grid, but without the team, the car, and the right structure behind you, it doesn't always translate. A prime example of this is Lewis Hamilton. In an era where Mercedes was dominant, nobody questioned Lewis. He was calm, controlled, relentless. The results spoke louder than words. It wasn't just down to mindset. He had Toto Wolff in his corner, managing the team like a war general, race engineers who understood him inside out, and crucially, he had Valtteri Bottas, who for most of that era played the perfect supporting role. The entire setup was designed for one thing, and that was to keep Lewis winning. Fast forward to 2025, Lewis moves to Ferrari. The car's inconsistent, the strategy's dicey.
Strategia? Francesco needs no strategy. It's very simple. You start the race, wait for Lightning McQueen to choke, pass him, then win. Francesco, always a win.
You've won 4 times around the Singapore Grand Prix. What's it going to take to get another win here?
Miracle.
And suddenly, Carlos Sainz, the man he replaced, is now taking podiums at Williams. And now the questions start. Has Lewis lost it? Was it all just the car? Was he ever really that good? What we're seeing is the same Lewis, but in a different package, and therefore, a different perception. His killer instinct is part of F1 folklore. People love that cold, ruthless energy.
Who would win if you all raced in reverse? I don't know, and I don't really care.
But it wasn't born in Formula, forged in his childhood. His father, Jos Verstappen, put him through a brutal, high-pressure karting program. And we've all heard the story.
Potato, I swear, it was really
I
bad.
know. I said, fuck, what is he doing? So I called him in. I was always on the tracks.
Yeah.
So he came back
and
and
there was trouble.
So he would stand up and I really smashed him on his helmet here. Bang! And he was like...
All the mechanics around there were like, what happened there?
And then, and I said, what are you doing? He said, we're here, it's World Championship, and I think we can win it.
If you don't drive normal, we go home. I pack up everything. He said I was going to be a champion. He was always the opposite. He would tell me I was going to be a truck driver or like a bus driver.
Really?
Yeah, because he was always, in a good way, I think, you know, putting the, not pressure, but making me realize that what I was doing at the time was not enough. my dad did that once to a mechanic with a fork.
He was built in a pressure cooker long before he ever reached Red Bull. And then when he got to Red Bull, he was handed the key. Christian Horner and Helmut Marko made him the golden child. He had top engineers and race strategies tailored to him. A series of second drivers from Albon to Gasly to Perez, who were all orbiting around his title bid. Max didn't need to fight to become number one. He was number one from day one. Red Bull have stumbled this season, and yes, they are making a bit of a comeback, but the same Max that so many people hated on during his dominant era. Is the same Max people are falling in love with again. We love a comeback story and we love seeing an underdog rise to the top. But I think we sometimes forget how they actually got there in the first place. Then we come to Lando Norris, who has shown up for years without having the machinery to match his talents. He's had to watch wins vanish in the rain. He's had to answer to a fan base who made him the face of the McLaren comeback before it ever happened. But while Lewis has had the dominant era and Max has had the dynasty, Lando's had to build brick by brick. Now he's finally in the title fight and he's brought the mentality that he's forged along the way. Because that's what people forget, mentality thrives in the right environment, truly revealed when everything around you is chaos. If you need proof of that, just look at Singapore 2025. Lando didn't qualify where he wanted, he started off in P4, there was mistakes and the pressure was on. When the lights went out, he came out swinging. The media spiraled and fans are divided. And instead of praising the move and calling it championship mentality, and to be fair, if Max made this move, that is what we'd call it, we're calling it unfair. But Oscar got robbed and Lando couldn't catch Max. He doesn't have what it takes, he broke papaya rules. But here's the truth, he did what he had to do. He took the podium, he got the points, and in a title race, that's everything. And Prost knew it, championships aren't won with the perfect laps, they're won with consistency. You show up, you survive, you score. And that's exactly what Lando did. Here's what gets me, F1 says that it wants emotion. More personality, they said. Drive to Survive exploded and we finally got to see the humans behind the helmets. But here's what I've come to realise. F1 only likes certain kinds of emotions.
And take that! Oh my goodness! Well, Delta Pica. Vince dice una cosa così. Vince dice una cosa così. Nico, quello non si può fare. Prova a imparare, bravo.
Ein Schelm, der Böses aber denkt, wenn wir über das Wort Kindergarten nachdenken.
Di inserirsi.
Räikkönen tuuppasi kuvaajan syrjään sellaisella voimalla, että mies kaatui.
Mate, we all have no grip. You all need to leave a little bit of space. But expect the next time the same, you know?
Han prøver på yderbanen. Once again, most unsportive driver of the grid. Suck my balls, mate. Yeah, you're really good, man.
Anger, rage, shouting over the radio, it's passion, it's fire, it's iconic. But the second you say, I'm not doing okay, or I've lost the confidence, the narrative shifts. Then it becomes, oh, you're too soft, you're a snowflake, you're not championship material. Because Formula One has a blueprint and it's a narrow one. You're allowed to show emotion, but that's only if it's masculine coded. And even humour comes with a fine print. You can joke around.
Ricardo!
You can be the face of memes, you can drop some one-liners. Only as long as you're winning and it fits the narrative. And if you're not ticking the boxes, then suddenly it becomes, oh, you're not serious enough, you're not focused, you're too emotional. And maybe the issue isn't the drivers, it's the culture around them. And let's not pretend the media doesn't feed this. We see Lando giving an honest post-race interview, says he was nervous, says he made a mistake. And what gets clipped? I wasn't confident. Not the overtake, not the podium, not the recovery drive, just that one line. Emotion then becomes the headline and vulnerability is the story. Take a look at Charles Leclerc, for example. We see him crying in the garage, screaming over the radio, and the world sympathizes. Because we've come to expect heartbreak from Ferrari, it's just part of the script now. Lando, when he shows emotions without the tragedy, without the chaos, and the flaming Ferrari in the background, and suddenly it's a different narrative. And that echo chamber, it sets the tone. Fans follow, clips go viral, and the same narratives just keep on being pushed out. Until eventually, the honesty that made you relatable becomes the very thing that's used to tear you down. And it's worth noting that F1 has seen the absolute rise in female fans. We make up 42% of audiences worldwide. Statistically, women report higher levels of anxiety, overthinking, and other mental health related conditions. So, when someone like Lando says, yeah, I go through that too, it hits different. I've definitely heard a narrative where people say, if you are a female fan and you happen to like Lando, it's only because you find him attractive or funny or both. But I don't think that's the full story. I think because, statistically, so many of us go through these issues, and when we see an F1 driver that we resonate with talk about them, then yes, we support him because he speaks up about the things that we go through, and yes, we resonate. Maybe that's why his female fan base is so strong. Because we see the pressure that comes with performance, the doubt that comes with talent, and not just focus, but fear, courage, and honesty. Let's be honest, most of us struggle with mental health on a normal day. Now, imagine doing that at 200 miles per hour on TV, whilst the world critiques your every move. So I recently went go-karting, and as much fun as it was, I was absolutely exhausted when I was done, and it felt like my back was contorted. It felt like somebody had taken my back and just twisted it like that. That's when it hit me. If I could feel like that after driving a go-kart, what must it feel like driving an F1 car week in, week out? And it's not just the physical aspect, but the mental aspect too, of being on a different track every week, different weather conditions, different tyre conditions, the team giving you orders, keeping sane whilst you're driving the car. There's a lot to contend with. It's really great to see that Gen Z and younger millennials are no longer buying into the shut up and drive mentality. We want athletes who feel human, who are relatable, who are funny, and show us that pressure doesn't cancel out personality. And Lando gives us that, and it matters. We've definitely seen some good changes in the sport in the last few years, but some things have actually changed for the worse. It doesn't feel as emotionally raw as it used to. And a big part of that is how the sport has slowly started to sanitize emotion, and we're seeing that not just through culture, but through actual policy. And a notable face in all of this is the FIA president, Mohammed bin Sulayem. And this is the man who once said Niki Lauda and Alan Prost only cared about driving. Now, Vettel drives around on a rainbow bicycle, Lewis cares about human rights, and Norris talks about mental health. And everyone has an opinion. It's just not the same sport anymore. And that's not just commentary, that's dismissal of modern drivers' values and emotions. A worldview that says shut up and race. Leave your politics, your vulnerability, and your personality out of it. To that, the FIA's swearing ban, and the message is clear. It tells drivers, watch yourself. To every word you say, muzzle your emotion, be professional, and be safe. Slowly, the honesty, the raw, in-the-moment chaos that makes racing what it is, has slowly started to disappear. And now, if you don't deliver a perfectly rehearsed George Russell-esque quote, no hate to George by the way, the moment you get out the car, you're called immature and unprofessional. The irony of it is the rawness is gone, but the judgment is worse than ever. Because now, even a flicker of emotion goes viral, it gets clipped, and it's overanalyzed by pundits who haven't raced in 2 decades. So when people come for Lando for being too honest, too emotional, or not perfectly polished, and I think what they're really coming after is the fact that he hasn't bought into that sanitized version of the sport. And honestly, that might be one of his most authentic traits. All is not lost, however. We're still seeing changing tides within the sport. So Sebastian Vettel, who previously said no to working with a sports therapist because of his own beliefs, has now changed his tone, and he recently spoke about Lando's mentality.
Aren't we all having good times and bad times? Whether we are Formula One drivers or, having a regular, let's say, regular job, and what is a regular job anyways, but aren't we all like that? We have better days and worse days. And I think it's the threat now is that people talk about what he's maybe going through and interpret it as a sign of weakness. Like, why is he doing that? You know, what's going on with him? What's wrong with him? Nothing's wrong with him. I think everybody's going through the same things in different phases of your life. Self-doubt is the most natural thing there is, but it's the most unnatural thing to talk about, and that is wrong. So I think it is completely fine, and I think it's very courageous of him to open up and talk about that side of him.
The culture is slowly changing, but it doesn't mean everybody likes it. We still hear the narrative that Lando's salty, he lacks sportsmanship, he threw Ricciardo under the bus, too online, too emotional, too soft. But let's not forget, this is the same Lando who, for years, felt like everybody's little brother. Now we see him as a bit more reserved, a bit more guarded. It may be that he's been burned and he's learnt from that. Funnily enough, people complain about that too. And a final point to wrap this up, and shout out to you if you're still here, is if we as fans want the sport to change and we want it to become more inclusive, more thoughtful and reflective of the fans who love it, we as fans need to do better. I think that starts with being mindful of what we say online. It means not sending death threats to drivers, and it means letting go of this toxic obsession to tear people down after a bad race or a bad moment. Because here's the thing, this kind of behaviour, it doesn't exist in a vacuum. It feeds into a wider culture and a wider mentality. If we want the sport to evolve, we have to change the mentality that surrounds it. And that's not just from the top down, but from the ground up. It's from the fans, the forums, the group chats, the comment sections, all of it. And because only then when we demand better and we do better, we can start shifting what Formula One can be. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.